My name is Councillor Panjala and I am Vice Chair. The Chair will not be attending tonight's meeting. I would like to remind everyone present that this meeting is being recorded and will be uploaded onto the Council's website. Item number 1, apologies for absence. Rhiannon, have you received any apologies, please?
Yes, we have. We've had apologies from Councillor Massey, our co-opted member Jasdeep Singh, and Satinder Jas, who's our Head of Internal Audit.
Okay, those are noted. Thank you. Item number 2, minutes. I move that the minutes of the Audit Committee meeting held on 11th August 2025 to be approved as a correct record. Does any member have any comments on the minutes? If no amendments, Councillor Barry Johnson, please.
Thank you, Chair. It's not a problem with the minutes, but it's quite clear in the minutes that the head of internal audit said he will come back to me with some dates of some ED2s that weren't signed. Now, I don't expect him to come back to the meeting here, but I've not had anything from him, so I would like to push that forward, please.
I will pass that on to him.
Thank you.
Thank you, Councillor. So, minutes are approved.
Agreed.
Yeah,
Thank you. Item number 3, urgent items of business. I have not agreed to any items of urgent business. Item number 4, declaration of interest. Does anyone wish to declare a declaration of interest? No. Thank you. I move forward. Item number 5, external audit report. Can I ask John Chance to present this item, please?
Thank you, Councillor, certainly. Okay, so members of the committee, we've got the usual update here on the status of the audits, and I can report that there are 5 years of unaudited accounts still outstanding. The table in paragraph 3.1 gives a very brief summary of the reasons behind that. Of course, our former auditors, BDO, are still to finalise the years 2021, 21-22 and 22-23, and much has unchanged since last time, really. We've still got the legal advice pending on the objection to the accounts which relate to 2021, and that's kind of holding everything up. So until we finalise that with the former auditors, BDO, there will be a delay. And that delay, and of course we've got Ernst & Young here with Dan Cook. Ernst & Young have got their reasons for doing a lighter touch on the last 2 years, 2023, 2024 and 24-25, the years we've just finished. So we'll probably hear from Dan as to more of those reasons for the lighter touch on those audits. So in essence, we are still waiting for certain things to happen in terms of the legal advice around the objection, and that's holding things up. And that also covers the value for money aspects, the VFM, which I refer to in paragraph 3.3. I've also had a chat with colleagues at the public sector audits appointments, and just to sort of clarify the position there, the auditors essentially get paid for what they do. So if they don't do a full audit, we can expect some leeway on the fee, and that's why I've mentioned it in the report in 3.4. And Dan may probably refer to that as well. So I think that's just for members of the committee to understand that it's that we get given these scale fees by the public sector audits appointments. I don't know if they're an authority or a body, but they're part of the Treasury, and therefore we can expect some sort of milestone and benchmark around that. So there will be some leeway on that if a full audit's not done. So I thought that was important to have that. And this is just for noting, really, this report. This is just a stock take at a point in time. We're still pressing ahead with trying to get everything done. And I can report that the accounts that we published on the 15th of August, the inspection period has opened and closed, and there were no inquiries of either ourselves as officers or of the auditors. So that's good news in a sense, because we've got through the inspection period. And just to conclude, there are a couple of minor things that Ernst & Young have mentioned in terms of some errors and some inquiries on the set of accounts, and of course have got the big word draft in front of them, and we're working on those. So I think in the future we will come back with a revised set of accounts, but they won't be markedly different. It's simple things like queries over the prior year figures, and actually some heading queries where we've got the wrong year listed in the accounts, because it's a long document over 100 pages. So fine, we appreciate the heads up on those, and we will fix them and bring them back to a future committee, probably the December one. So I think that's the essence of this bulletin. It's just a refresher on where we are with all of the open years, and I'm afraid we've got the word disclaim against the 5 years for all those reasons, leading back to the objection, leading back to the issues of 2022 and etc. So I think that's where we are with everything, and I will take any questions. Obviously, Dawn is here with me, and Dave is here as well now, as Deputy Section 151 Officer, and myself as Chief Accountant. So thank you, Chair.
Thank you, John Chance, for the detailed report and for the briefing. I appreciate about your briefing. And also, does any members have comments or questions, please?
Sorry, Councillor, I was just going to say, would it be okay if I just introduced to the committee David McNamara, who's joined the council as the interim Deputy Section 151 Officer. So David joined us last week and obviously be supporting me in terms of moving the finances forward, and you'll see a lot more of David at the audit committees. So sorry to butt in, but I'd just like to be helpful if I could introduce David. Thank you.
Section 151. Councillor Karen.
Thank you for this. Just a question. I was on the audit committee some time ago, and ever since then we've had the same bit of information. Basically, all I'm asking is, have we got any sort of time scale about when that 2021 thing can be completed? I know all the reasons and I understand them, but it just has gone on for a very long time, and we're not actually seeing any end point. So I don't know, is there any way we can find that out? Thank you.
Thanks, Councillor Raper. So what we talked about last time at the committee is, in respect of the objection, is if everything worked. So we explained that we had gone out for the appropriate external counsel advice, that if everything, when that advice came back, if everything worked through the process it had to do, the best case scenario would be that the issues would be wound up at the end of the year, calendar year. Worst case scenario was the end of the financial year. We have received the advice now. It is going through our own legal internal due diligence process. So I think it's highly unlikely now that it probably will be resolved until the end of the a minimum at the end of the calendar year.
Thank you. I know you explained that last time, but I just wondered if we had any more concrete information. So thank you.
Does anyone?
Yeah.
Thank you, Chair. In the light of the fact, I had a similar question to yourself as well, but the fact that we are still in the position we are and not being able to sort out those accounts. John, you said you've got some simple inquiries over prior years, but can you define the simple with a bit more meat on the bones of what that is? Because I don't see it as simple when we can't get to a point over a year and a bit, and hopefully by the end of this year, of being able to do something about prior years' accounts.
Yeah, certainly, Councillor. What I'm referring to there is a slight change in the prior year statements between 23-24 and 24-25, which Ernst & Young have picked up upon. So it's nothing to do with the objection and the legal issue. It's some restatement of figures that we've discovered since we've published 23-24, which was much earlier this year, and when we've done the 24-25. So we're just really affirming with Ernst & Young what those differences are and the reasons for them. So it's nothing to do with the deep-rooted issues of the objection. and they are, I don't see them as an issue. One of them is around a pension. The pension liability statement had changed, and there'll be reasons for that. There's some information about financial instruments that Ernst & Young have asked us questions about. I've got the Treasury Management team looking at that this week. And like I say earlier, that there really were some fairly straightforward issues about the wrong year being listed in the header on the accounts, which if you are going to examine a set of accounts, you might as well pick up on everything you find, and that's what they're doing. So there's Dan actually said to me a few weeks ago that there was a lot less initial queries being thrown up from the review than he would have expected. So that was a positive for me, and that me and the team have been looking at those this week, and we expect to close them out. So they're nothing to do with the legacy stuff going back with BDO. It's all about Ernst & Young and the last 2 years, and they are imminently solvable. And there's nothing big in there at all. And like I say, we'll bring them back.
Is there any other members have any comments and questions? Yeah, Dan.
Thank you, Chair. So I just wanted to say that was quite a comprehensive update from John, but I am here to answer any questions if the committee have any questions. And just to allude on what John was talking about in terms of the procedures that we've been performing on the 24-25 statements. So as Ben mentioned at the last audit committee, we are performing limited procedures on the 24-25 accounts. That's because of all the issues that John has set out. Also because the draft accounts for 24-25 were provided late to us. But what we are doing is we are doing some limited procedures on the statements just to see if there are any issues that we can resolve quite easily. So one of those is performing the casting and cross-referencing checks within the statements. As John alluded to, we're checking that the comparator figures in the 24-25 statements match the 23-24 accounts. And we found some inconsistencies there, so we just want to make sure those are resolved. A few issues around casting, a few issues around, like John said, headers being incorrect. So we picked those up. We've also performed a technical review of the accounts as well. So not just the casting, but asking some questions about things that we're unsure about. And John mentioned the financial instruments there, and they're looking at that now. So there are things that we are doing. We are hamstrung by the previous audits that are open that John has mentioned already. But we are trying to progress things. We are trying to do some procedures on the statements to give you guys some assurance that the statements are okay and that they are progressing okay. But I'm here to answer any questions if you have any further questions. Thank you, Chair.
Thank you, Dan. I have one question. Like auditors transition from BDO to E and EY. Like how are we ensuring smooth handover and consistency between BDO and E and Y?
So that's a good question. We are in regular contact with BDO. So Rachel Britton, the audit partner at BDO, we are in regular discussions with her. Unfortunately, there haven't been many updates from their side. Similar to what we've heard on the objection, there's still a lot of work from the legal side going on in terms of trying to resolve the objection. As far as I'm aware, BDO have finished the work on the accounts and the VFM work. They are just waiting for the objection to be concluded so they can conclude their procedures. But as we've said before, we do need BDO to report before we can close any of the audits out, because we are not relying on their work, but we need to see the outcome of their VFM procedures, their value for money procedures, just because that might give our risk assessment some information. So we don't want to report anything before BDO report in case we miss something that they've picked up on, and we need to follow that up. But what will happen is once the audits are closed by BDO, EY will perform file reviews of the BDO audits, so we will get to pick up on the issues that they flagged, the risks that they've identified on the audits, the value for money work and the weaknesses that they may identify and report on. So once that's closed, we will then be reviewing BDO's work to inform our risk assessment of anything that we need to pick up, anything that we might have missed over the last 12 months that they've picked up on. So yes, we are in regular contact with them, and we will be reviewing their files and reviewing their work to make sure that we're following on from their work and making sure there's a smooth transition from 22-23 to 23-24.
Thank you, Dan, for the explanation. And I have one more thing about like this, the accounts are pending for quite a long, like 5 years. So, do we have a next steps? Do we have any completion date set of target?
So I think that's a difficult question in terms of when we're going to finish, because as Dawn's mentioned, we do need to wait for the objection to close, and we're not quite sure when that is. We're hoping by the end of the calendar year, but it might end up being the end of the financial year. For 24-25, as Ben mentioned at the last audit committee, we are only proposing limited procedures on those statements, which we've started, and I've explained some of those today. We have to perform our value for money audit. That is a statutory requirement, and we will need to close those for 23-24 and 24-25. But in terms of getting back on track, that will be something we need to assess next year. So where are we for the 25-26 statements? Is the council able to produce their draft accounts and publish those within the deadline? And are they able to answer our risk assessment questions so that we're ready to perform an audit in the allocated window?
Thank you, Dan, for the detailed explanation. Member Chance.
Thank you. Dan, thank you for confirming, but while I take the point that you have to wait for BDO to finish their audit, review their work, and then do yours, surely we should have a set date where we're going to finish 24-25, or it could keep dragging on.
Yeah, that's a good question, and one that I didn't elaborate on. So there is a hard backstop close date for the 24-25 audit. That is the 27th of February. So once that date has passed, we will be unable to perform any more procedures on the accounts. So our aim will be to conclude the 24-25 statements by the 27th of February. But similar to 23-24, where the backstop date was the 28th of February, I think, if we're unable to do that, the process will roll on, because we are unable to close the accounts until BDO have closed theirs. We're just not allowed to close the accounts until the previous year has been closed. So you can't close a year after a year that's still open.
Do you have any more questions?
Yes, please.
Yeah, go on.
Thank you. If I understand what you've just said, 27th of February 26 is your backstop date. Is it realistic to say if BDO finish their work in this calendar year, that's achievable, or are we still going to be into a year later?
So for the limited procedures that we propose to undertake and the value for money work that we have to undertake, it would be possible for us to conclude if BDO were able to conclude by the end of the calendar year. Yes, we have made good progress on our value for money work already. We've made good progress on the limited procedures that we plan to do, as we've discussed already. So yeah, if BDO are able to close that out before the end of the calendar year, we would be able to close our value for money work in January and February and be able to conclude before the backstop and issue our disclaimer opinion before that date.
So I have one more query. What support and escalation may be required from the audit committee or commissioners to expedite progress?
That's another good question, and we definitely welcome any support. At the minute, we're working hard with John and Dawn and now Dave to get the answers to the queries that we are raising with them. There are still some that we need to resolve, and there's some that have been on our audit portal for a while, but now the team have brought Dave in. I know they're working on those queries. So maybe regular check-ins with the finance team to make sure they're on top of the audit queries that we've raised. But other than that, I don't think there's much more. I think the team are aware of the queries that they have outstanding from us. So yeah, I think if we can get those closed as well, that will help us to achieve the backstop deadline that we've just alluded to.
Thank you, Dan. Councillor Karen.
Thank you. Just to follow on from that, really, how confident are our officers that they can meet the time expectations? Because I know how busy you all are, but obviously, if we're relying on you needing information, do you feel you're in a position now to do that?
I mean, I can answer that one, Councillor. Those queries need to be done and resolved, so they will be done.
Thank you.
So recommendation. The audit committee are recommended to 2.1 note the status of each year of unaudited accounts from 2020 21 to 2024 25. Are the recommendations are agreed?
Noted.
Okay. Thank you. Item number 6, corporate risk register. Can I ask Don Calvert to present this item, please?
Thank you, Chair. So what you've got here is that we've got the corporate risk register. Now this is the same as what you've seen. So we're just sort of bringing it here to say that it hasn't changed at the moment. What we have to do on the corporate risk register is that we have to review it quarterly. So we review with the owners of the risk, and it will go through our the council's SLT, and then it will come to the audit committee. I'll be honest with you, we haven't quite got up to our proper timetable of reviewing that quarterly. So what Satinder is working on now is a very clear timetable that it must get reviewed quarterly, go to SLT, and then come to the audit committee. So that is what we're working on. So this is the risk register that you've seen before, and when it comes back to you, it will be an updated risk register, and we do need to get into that quarterly review for you.
Do members have any comments or questions? Councillor Kairan.
I seem to be saying a lot, sorry. On the risk register, I'm looking at the page 20, cyber security. Do you find the risk is going to be increased as we push more and more stuff online?
Yeah. Councillor Mark.
Thank you. One of the things that we're doing within IT and digital is actually looking about transversing to the cloud, which is something that is really critical to protect our cyber security. And we're actually going through the procurement at the moment, and we are looking at everything we need to do within the digital framework to ensure our cyber security.
Thank you.
Co-op member Clark.
Thank you. Dawn, when was the corporate risk register last reviewed, and why are there actions that have been, should I say, unresolved largely on this?
So there's not issues unresolved. So the corporate risk register is our dynamic document. So one of our targets for this financial year was to make sure that we had a refreshed corporate risk register, which we did. And that risk register went to Cabinet and came to the audit committee. What we have to do now is we have to update that corporate risk register quarterly and make sure that it comes to the audit committee quarterly, because the audit committee acts as a scrutiny function for the risk register. So what we need to do is this is the risk register that you've seen. We now to make sure that we are into that regular quarterly review of the risk register, because what we would do is we would look at the risks as well to make sure that the risk register is reflective of the corporate risk where the council stands at the moment. The directorates are now working on all their directorate risk registers, so each directorate has their own risk register of the sort of lower level risks that are relevant to their services. And part of the review of the corporate risk register is, does anything need to be escalated up, escalated down? So it doesn't need. It will change. It could potentially change every month. It is a dynamic document, but we just need to. So I do apologise. We just need to make sure that we have now we've got that risk register. We are reviewing it robustly quarterly to update you as an audit committee who acts as a scrutiny function if the corporate risks of the council have changed and why.
Is there any other members? Any more queries? I have one question. Regarding this matrix, page number 23, we can see like a total 25 have provided, total 25, like medium, high risk, low risk, and very high risk.
Repeat the question, please, councillor.
Items are high risk and medium risk.
That's just showing you. Yeah.
So do we have any plan to like when can we expect like to green make it into green work progress there?
It's a good question. Do you want me to respond, councillor? Yeah. So it's a good question. So what that matrix does, and actually thinking about this, when we bring the update, we need to explain that matrix to you a little bit better. So I'll make sure that happens. This is just a matrix that summarises where the corporate risks of the council are. So it tells you that, for example, it's just a matrix that explains to you whether the risk is so for example, if a risk is classed as red and it's very high, it means that it's very likely to happen, and if it does happen it will be a serious impact. So that's just explaining how we categorise the risks.
Okay.
And obviously, as you can see, the upper end of the spectrum, if something is classed as a green low, it means that it's very unlikely to happen, and if it does happen, the impact will be very low. And what we need to do for you is when we get into that rhythm of a quarterly update for you, we need to explain where them impacts have changed. So if something has moved from an amber to a red, you need to understand why, because that's very important that we report that to you and why we have made that change and what we're going to do to manage that. Likewise, there might be some that go down the risk register or even come off the corporate risk register, and that's the type of thing that we need to do in terms of the quarterly review, is the risk will change and we need to explain to you why.
Yeah.
Thank you for the explanation.
And just to add to that, when you were talking about when would they become green, when you're doing that and you're mitigating the risk, sometimes you'll look and the cost of mitigating the risk would outweigh if it ever happened and the severity of it happening. So it's you're not really looking, you're not looking to try and get everything in the green, because nothing will ever be in the green, but you need to understand sometimes, are you going to mitigate it, or do you say, well, it's unlikely to happen, and if it did, the severity is extremely low, so you don't look to mitigate that. What you do look to mitigate is the ones that, if it happens, the likelihood of it happening and the severity is high. That's where you look to see the mitigations that you can do. Okay?
Thank you all. So item number 6 doesn't have any recommendations, so I'm moving to next item number 7. Annual Information Governance Report, April 2024, March 2025. Can I ask Rachel Steele to present the report, please?
Hello, evening. So the report hasn't got any actions, so it's really just for noting. So the freedom of information performance for last year was 93%. We did 84% on our subject access requests, and we had an increase of 59% on our sharing requests, so we had 346 last year. So performance for the team is still high, and we're still pleased with that. And that was all I was really going to say. Unless you've got any specific questions, I'll let you like me to answer. The report kind of speaks for itself. Yes.
Thank you for the detailed report and the brief explanation. Does any members have the questions and comments? Councillor Sisi.
Hi, I just have a quick question regarding the 84% of requests being processed within the legal time frame for the subject access requests, because in the paragraph before it gives kind of like a target percentage for the freedom of information request being processed, which is helpful because comparative 93% to 90%, we can see obviously the team's doing well. I was wondering, is there a similar sort of target figure for the subject access request, so we can see whether 84% is good or not so good? That's just for my own information.
Yeah, I mean, there isn't, the ICO set the parameters, there isn't a set target. They like you to do over 80%, is my understanding. And if I've got that wrong, I'll come back to you and correct that, but I believe that's to be right.
Okay, yeah, that's what I wanted to know. Thank you.
Councillor Karen.
Thank you for this. Just looking at page 27, the council refused to release a full copy of a report, and we were instructed to. Is there any update on? Has that happened?
Yes, it has. It has been released.
Thank you.
Councillor Wall, you want to say something?
Yeah, no, just when you're talking about the subject access request, the target is you're meant to try and turn that around within a month. If you cannot turn it around within a month because it is complex and it requires a lot of data pulling, you can actually ask for the extension for a further 2 months. So the 84% is not really, it's covering the month, where some might go on to have the additional 2 months' time that you're given.
Thank you all. Councillor Karen.
Can I just ask, are you saying that perhaps we need more information in this, explaining these things that you're explaining, Councillor? You know, in future reports, not this one.
It's... Can't get my thing on.
Just nod.
No, that's it. To be honest, it isn't actually my portfolio. It's just that I have dealt with SAR requests previously, so I do understand the time limits that you have on them. So in my previous day job, we used to have a lot of them.
Councillor Deborah Arnold.
Thank you. Although, like, I mean, the percentage is really good, I'm not taking away from that. There is a commonality about late return of information by services. Now, I would expect that to say if they've asked for an extension, then I wouldn't expect that to be recorded there as late return of information by the service. So can you just clarify, is it definitely because the service is late providing the information? And if that's the case, as there's a commonality right through, how you're going to pick that up and change that?
Yeah, I mean, it is a commonality, and the difficulty is sometimes we're talking 10, 15 years worth of data that they need to find. So obviously it's not necessarily their day job. They might be social workers, they might have priorities, and we're asking for 15 years worth of data. So they have time. We give them a small window to get that to us because we need to read it word for word within the month. We don't know until we've got it how complex or detailed or how large it is necessarily. So then we can extend to up to 3 months. Sometimes we don't meet the 3 months because it's not possible with the amount of volumes that we get requested. So it is definitely a delay from service, because if it was just delaying us reading it, we would put that on the report. But to be honest with you, it's sometimes near impossible for them to get that to us on time because of the complexity and the volumes.
Can I just come back?
One more question.
Yeah, I will, more of a comment. Then I would say that maybe that just needs to be stated in the report a bit clearer, because I think otherwise you look at this and you think, well, the officers aren't doing it quick enough because we haven't got that understanding. They haven't applied for the extension, but they've got 15 years of work. Maybe just needs to say late return due to volume or something.
Right, okay.
Yeah.
Noted, yes.
Helen Nicole want to say something.
Sorry, that is working now. Thank you, Chair. I just wanted to come in on that as well, around the point you made, Councillor Arnold, about how we are tracking the trends and how we're ensuring compliance. So relatively recently, there's been introduced, particularly on FOIs, a weekly escalation list that gets sent out to the executive and corporate directors. And they can then see exactly what FOIs are outstanding in the team, when the deadline date is, what the subject matter is, and can then chase the appropriate relevant officers. So that's been introduced as a way of managing the process and also having that appropriate escalation route.
Does any member have any more questions and comments?
I've got another question. Sorry, I've got another question a bit further on page 29, the records management. With the transfer of physical records to, online or whatever, have we identified any particular things that need to remain, or we need to have both in view of what might happen were there to be a cyber attack? You know, are there any areas that have information that if it were lost, it would be completely lost? Well done. Thank you. Thank you.
I have one question about the mail merge. Like, what are the next steps we're going to take in order to not to repeat, like we had one incident about the mail merge went to wrong address?
not in the habit of that, sorry. So there's a project ongoing at the moment to have the data that's being posted in bulk to go through a company as opposed to through our own mailroom. And the view is that by having the barcodes and that on the letters specifically, it will prevent that from ever happening because it will go straight through to a template. And that template knows it can't print back to back. So some of the errors that have occurred that have caused that issue is where people are sending something to print, maybe 10, 15 letters, so a small bulk, and not changing the template and allowing it to print back to back, and therefore somebody else's letters going on the back of somebody else's. So by using a specific template and it going to a certain end point, that should prevent that from happening. So that's an ongoing piece of work at the moment.
Thank you for the explanation.
It's okay.
I want to. Does any members have any more questions and comments? That's all? Okay. Recommendations, same as like note the information governance activity and performance. Noted? Thank you. I'm moving to next item, number 8, annual complaints and inquiry report. Can I ask Tracy Hazer to present the report, please?
Thank you, Chair, and hello everyone. I'm here to present the annual complaints report for 24-25. Hopefully you've all read the report prior to the meeting, so I'll just summarise the key points and then I'll be happy to take any questions. The complaints reports run from pages 45 to 102 of your meeting pack, with appendices 1 to 3 summarising the top complaint areas and themes. So some key highlights from the report. The number of complaints received for the reporting period is 2,318. For the same period last year, the figure was 1,940. So the reporting period does represent an increase of 378 complaints, which is actually 19%. This is due mainly to the increase in waste complaints following the changes to the collection schedule. Also, there was an increase in housing solutions complaints. And additionally, we introduced an online complaints form which has allowed residents to more easily make contact to make a complaint. I made that decision because I think it's important that we get to, understand where we've got issues and put learning in place. So all the details of the top 10 complaints areas are identified in Appendix 1, which is in at page 53 of the pack. Adults, social care and children's have a separate complaints procedure, and they are in appendices 2 and 3, which is from page 77 for children's and page 87 for adults. Some of the highlights of the report, 39% of complaints were upheld, which is an improvement compared to the same period last year, where 43% of complaints were upheld. For the reporting period, 90% of complaints were responded to within time frame, which again is an improved performance from the previous year, where 87% were responded in time frame, which is positive considering there was an increase in complaints as well. There was a substantial increase in MP inquiries, of which 82% were responded to within time frame, which was a decrease compared to last year's figures of 88% within time frame. However, there were only 259 MP inquiries last year and 438 this year, and a large volume of those inquiries were relating to waste collections and housing applications being received. Members' inquiries 4,174, and 94% of those were responded to within time frame, which was the same response to 4,048 last year. 94% responded within time frame. The target for that is 90%. So we are exceeding the target for that, with the average time to respond to members' inquiries 5 days. The council received an increase in compliments this year, which is really positive. So 2,575 compared to 2,089 last year, which is a 23% increase in compliments. And I'm pleased to say the highest volume of those was for the customer contact centre. Ombudsman inquiries and compensation payments, there were 48 decisions with 19 findings of fault, and all the details of those Ombudsman decisions and inquiries are in Appendix 1. There was 6,960 paid out by the council or its contractors as a form of complaint resolution across the Stage 1 complaints, and £980 across the Stage 2 complaints for the year. Learning, all the learning is identified in Appendix 1, so it shows the top complaints areas and the learning that's been put in place. There's also a summary of the compliments within the pack as well, showing the contact centre with 1,723 of the total 2,575 compliments received. And those are really the main points, so happy to take any questions from anybody.
Thank you, Tracy, for the detailed report, and very transparent reports are very transparent, and I'm happy to know about that performance level has increased, and also we got like a 23% of performance comments from the residents, so that is a positive sign. Council having a very financially very limited resources in order to do many things, even though we are managing over 94% is really great work the team they are doing. I would like to appreciate that one. And does any members have any questions and comments? Councillor Deborah Arnold, please.
Thank you, Chair. It's a quick question. When it comes to the learnings, when we're putting things right and the outcomes, what measures are being taken to ensure that the learnings are working, that you've got the right learning in place and that you're seeing improvement? What measures are being taken? How can we see that?
Thank you, Councillor. The corporate complaints team monitor the responses that come through and sort of check the learning. But I've taken over the complaints team just over a year ago, so I am observing some of that. You do tend to find that a lot of the complaints, it's the same reasons that we had last year. Like, it's always sort of bins that's higher, and when you have big policy changes like collection schedules, etc., then you are going to receive higher complaints. But I personally have a look at the learning and would liaise with the service if I didn't feel like the learning was appropriate, and the team would escalate that to me. They've been doing something very similar with chasing complaints as well, which is why we've seen an improvement in the response times. So if we find a particular service area is not responding quickly, then they escalate that to me. Then I engage with the service leads within those departments. So I think we've put in place some really good processes to identify those things, but where there are policy changes, it's very tricky because you are naturally going to get lots of complaints about when you're reducing collection rates and that sort of thing. So does that answer your question?
It kind of does. I think it would be nice if there was some way, like on the next report, to know whether you can see that there's been an improvement or it hasn't improved, so that we can see that that learning is correct. Just, nobody wants to go into specific cases that casework they've got, but I can see examples where that learning's been in place, but it doesn't seem to have made a difference. But overall, it might have done, and it might just be my one case that hasn't. So it would be nice to be able to see whether you're seeing an improvement or not.
That's fine, and I can do that for you. What I can do from the next report, when I present the volume for this year, I'll show the previous annual figures on the report, or if it's the mid-year report, which is due in February, I'll show the previous 6-monthly report. That's easy to do, so more than happy to take that action forward.
Councillor Karen Robert.
Thank you. Thank you. I've got a few questions. One follows on from Councillor Arnold's question. Previously, and here we've seen that where issues have been identified, people, contractors or whatever, are reminded of their responsibilities, of our expectations and so on. And I had previously raised this, but from this I can't quite see if it's happening. Who monitors to see that? I mean, it's one thing to say to people, don't forget what the policy is, but who actually monitors to see do they abide by it? So I think you may have started to answer that in your response. So that's my first question. I don't know if you want to answer that now or...
Yeah, sure. I mean, the corporate complaints team and my team are responsible for collating the information for all the service areas. The actual responsibility of ensuring that the services follow through on the actions that they say they're going to do, and if that relates to a contractor, that they deal with that in their clienting process is down to the service. So it's difficult for me to... Obviously, I can't monitor sort of everything across the council, but you know, I can certainly look out if there are any hotspots, and then perhaps provide a little bit more detail of that for you on the next report, if that's helpful.
Thank you. I think the issue is that previously we were standards and audit, and I don't know how we communicate with all those departments to say who is actually monitoring that the things they're suggesting or reminding are actually happening. So thank you for that. The next one is with the waste. I mean, I don't know if your data is easy enough to see this, but have the complaints eased off as people have become more familiar with how it should do? Yeah.
Yes, they have. I haven't got the exact figures because the mid-year report is being compiled at present. That will be presented at February Audit Committee. But I have been informed that there has been a substantial decrease since people have sort of got used to the new collection. And just to sort of give you some idea, for the last annual complaints report, there were 535 waste complaints. For this particular annual report, there are 643, but even on the last one, they were introducing the charging for the brown bin, so that made that higher. And then we had the changes in collection. So, yeah.
Thank you. I was hoping that was going to be the case.
Yeah,
and the last question is there were a lot of complaints about the contact centre.
Their compliment, sorry.
No, but you've also got complaints about it.
No, the contact centre has hardly any complaints, and they're not on the top 10. The compliments, the contact centre has the highest.
That's why they don't appear in the...
They don't appear in the top 10.
No, that's fine. Yeah, wrong page. But thank you.
That's okay, no problem.
Co-opted member, Clark, go on.
Tracy, is there any data to show previous year's financial remedies to just see any year-by-year trends or service areas that need to be looked at?
I don't have that to hand, but it will be in every mid-year and annual complaints report. But I can certainly include that if that's something that you would like to see on the next report, or I can take that away and compare to last year's report and provide you with that information, if that helps.
I think if you include in the next year's report.
Yep, okay, that's fine, no problem.
Thank you, Tracy. I have one query about that. Compliments, how we are receiving, like digitally or by post or over the phone?
It's a variety of methods. Some services may get an email into the service, some may get a letter into the service. For the contact centre, we have a customer satisfaction survey. So at the end of every call, the customers have the opportunity to score the service that they have received, but there is also a mechanism for them to leave a voice message about the service that they've received. That's optional, they don't have to. So all of those contact centre, not all of them, but the majority of those contact centre compliments come from the lovely messages that customers have actually left on that recorded survey. They are then transcribed automatically, so we keep copies of all the feedback that they've received, and we also include that in our monthly operational reports, which are presented to our Assistant Director. So that's where the bulk of those come through the contact centre. So it's where people actually take the trouble to leave a lovely message about the service that they received.
Thank you, Tracy. And there are no recommendations for this item, so the report is for noting purposes only. Sorry. Councillor Deborah.
Sorry, just coming back on that. So, as members, we do hear that people can't get through to the contact centre, and they'll raise that with the councillor, but then that will go to members' inquiries. But it doesn't necessarily want to be registered as a complaint that goes through the monitoring officer and everything. So, how can you in some way look at members' inquiries to see if there is anything about the contact centre? Because yours is coming kind of like at the end from the survey, but if you haven't been able to get through, you won't have done anything with the survey, if that makes sense.
Sure. The complaints for the contact centre are exceptionally low, and I'm talking like out of hundreds of thousands of contacts every year, they may get 7 or 8 upheld complaints. So it really is very, very low. Obviously, the complaints and members' inquiries also sits under my service. So believe me, if there's a members' inquiry relating to the contact centre, I would be sort of straight looking into it. We do not get members' inquiries about that. The telephony response levels are very, very good for the contact centre. We had a substantial FTE resource saving that was made for 23-24, and we've adapted ways of working so that advisors take all of the skill sets. We've managed to reduce the handling time of the calls so that they deal with more calls more quickly. And the telephony response target the achievement far exceeds the target. It's really very, very good. So what we often find is that if somebody is complaining about not getting through to a department, when we actually do a number trace, if we get the number that somebody's dialed from and the time of the call, we can do a search, and 99% of times we actually find that they haven't contacted the contact centre. They've contacted another number or an external number. It's very rare that it is actually the contact centre. If any members do get any of those issues, please let me know, because if you give me the number of whoever's called, I can do a trace on the number and I can identify straight away where that call is routed to. So I'm more than happy to do that.
Councillor Karen Draper want to ask something?
This is just a comment, really. In our libraries, there are direct lines to the council. There is no button on it for the contact centre. Now, I have raised that with members' inquiries. I've not had a response yet, but or I had a response saying that I don't know what it said, but just for your information, it would be really useful for our residents if they could use that method to get through to the contact centre, because a lot of people don't. The reason it came to light was someone was unsure which department they needed to speak to about a certain issue, and so we felt, go to the contact centre, they can advise you, but of course they couldn't contact the contact centre. So thank you.
I do know about that particular members' inquiry because I did get sight of that, and one of my team actually responded to that, and we asked ICT to investigate, and there was an issue with the direct access phones within the libraries, not all of them, but some of them. So they have rectified that to my knowledge, but I will follow up on that and check, because it should be that any customer that's in a library or hub can use that direct access phone and come straight through on the appropriate skill set. So they should route automatically to, for example, an advisor that deals with benefits or counter-attack. So I will check that that's been resolved.
Because the issue wasn't that you couldn't get through to benefits or whatever. The issue was if you needed advice as to who you should contact, there was no contact centre to go to on the direct line. So you couldn't speak to somebody to ask for advice. So that was it.
I'll follow up with ICT because they did say they were resolving that. So I'll get back to you on that one as well. Thank you.
Co-opted member Clark, go on.
Tracy, there are a few areas where there's learning to be confirmed. When would that be confirmed, and what would the future reports look like?
forgot to put my mic on. Where the service hasn't responded. So I will personally follow up on all of those and make sure that when we get the mid-year report, everything's updated on there for you. Because we collate the information, we're very dependent on services actually providing some of that information. And if we don't sort of get it back in time, then we have to just complete the report with the information that we have. But I will personally take that forward and make sure that's updated.
Does any members have any more questions and comments? So there are no recommendations for this item. The report is for noting purposes only. I am moving to next item number 9, Annual Audit Committee Report 2024-25. Can I ask Helen Nicole to present the report, please?
Thank you, Chair. This is a report for noting by the committee. It's essentially a report that collates information on the activity of the Audit Committee during the 2024-25 year. And it sets out in detail in the report the issues that the committee have looked at in terms of governance, internal and external audit functions, risk management, counter-fraud, complaints and information governance activity. The intention is that once this report is hopefully approved by yourselves this evening, that it will then proceed to go to Council on the 22nd of October, so later this month. It isn't a statutory requirement that we produce a report of the activity of the Audit Committee, but it's considered good practice for both this committee and then also full council to have oversight of the work that the committee has undertaken over the financial year. That's really the crux of it. I'm very happy to take any questions that the committee may have.
Thank you, Helen, for the detailed report and briefing. Does any members have questions or comment? So as per the report, I have one question about that. 20 audits per year, that is achievable based on the current resources.
So, Chair, this relates to the activity that was undertaken in the 24-25 period. So, I believe that reports were coming to the committee during that period that set out what was proposed in relation to internal audit. And then I'm aware that we also have the regular internal audit update reports that are then coming during this financial year as well. So I can't comment specifically on the target that's been set, and I note that my colleague who's the head of internal audit isn't here this evening, but I'm happy to just check in with him regarding that target and what's been proposed for this year. But the purpose of this report is very much looking back at what happened over the last year.
Thank you for the explanation. And co-opted member Clark, go on.
Ellen, what would be useful is having probably data on training also that was provided to the committee, or what type of training courses was provided to the committee in the year in this report going forward.
Thank you very much. That's really useful. We can absolutely include a section around that. Just in addition to that, I would note as well that the Standards Committee takes a regular report from officers around training that's provided to all members across all of the council, but we can absolutely extrapolate out the information related to audit and add a paragraph into this report. I'm happy to do so before publication for the full council on the 22nd of October if the committee would like me to.
Does any members have any more questions?
Would you like to add that as an additional recommendation? Would the committee like to do that? Yeah. Yeah, that's seconded.
Recommendations. The committee is recommended to 2.1 note and approve the annual report of the audit committee for 2024-2025.
Noted.
Thank you. Next item, work program. Do any members wish to comment on the work program? No. That concludes the business of the meeting this evening, and I now declare the meeting closed at 8 p.m. Thank you.